expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
God is a solution. God, the 12-step.
I like where he's going here.
Helps the community grow, helps us grow. Monty has done a phenomenal job.
And you're talking about taking people through a spiritual process, getting them into recovery.
Thanks, Monty, and thanks for all your support.
We need spirituality to make this thing work long term.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
And now, broadcasting on location somewhere in the vast expanse of the Pacific Northwest, it's the over-opinionated 12-stepologist, the Monty'man.
Yes, indeed. Well, we are back. Welcome aboard, one and all. After 2 weeks of coughing and wheezing and sneezing and snot flying and all that kind of stuff, we're back in the studio. Roger McDermott is with us from Huntington Beach, California, but actually, you're in Arizona right now. Is that right?
I am in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Yes, indeed, in the beautiful Southwest Sonoran Desert.
Yes, in your brand new Chrysler Pacifica van, touring all over the countryside, spreading the good news of the good news. Indeed.
Yes, whatever you just said, Monty,
yeah,
that's absolutely
you like it?
Accurate.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, you betcha. Take you back to the 60s there in our little sound clip with Marsha's introduction with the group Iron Butterfly. Now, Cecil begged me to be able to rock out a little bit on Cecil's intro to the Weekly Wine, so I conceded and said it was okay.
Honey, don't you know we love the whining? In-a-gara-da-vida, baby. It's always in Monty's perfect timing.
Rock out.
Oh, won't you come with me? I'll take you by the hand. Oh, won't you come with me and listen to this man as he whines? Yes, he whines. Oh, woohoo! Go ahead, Montyman. Give us your weekly wine.
Yeah. All right, that is correct. It is time for the Weekly Wine, where I get to complain about something or some things that I am more than likely completely powerless over, and it's total nonsense. And if you lose sleep over any of these things that I'm complaining about today, you may want to apply and implement steps 10, 11, and 12 in your life. I know I do. Here's the first one. I got three. Hey, listen, we've been gone for a couple weeks here, so I had to bring them back. Preempting my favorite TV shows with political nonsense. And I don't care what side of the fence you're on. When you preempt my favorite TV shows with your political crap, I get irritated. I've been waiting all week to find out what was going on a particular show, and these people couldn't stop with their rah-rah conventions. Guess what? Nobody's changing their minds. Go home. We get to vote in November. Go home. Get some rest. There. Said my piece about that one.
Do you feel better now, Mike?
I do. I feel much better.
Okay.
I feel the same way when they have their stinking sports events that preempt my favorite TV shows. Listen, I pay good money to our cable provider or whoever so I can watch my shows, And I'm not interested in touchdowns and home runs. And you got other channels for that. Don't stick it on all the channels. I don't appreciate it. Okay, moving on. $13.58 for 2 small cheeseburgers at Wendy's. We're heading up to Portland yesterday, and we had to get something in our tummies because we hadn't eaten all morning before church, and we got out of church and we were going up to celebrate a buddy of mine's 70th. He was my best man at my wedding, his 70th birthday. And Marcia said, I got to put something in my stomach. So we just got a small rinky-dink cheeseburger. And the lady goes, that'll be $13.58. I just about fell out of the car. $13.58 for 2 little cheeseburgers. I guess this is the new normal. But the one that really gets me is people that won't move up when they're in line. I don't care if it's at the bank. I don't care if it's at the drive-thru. Yesterday it was at the gas station. Right? There's like 2 car lengths between the car in front of us and the van that was in front of him. And he's not on his phone. He's not reading. He's not distracted. He's just looking straight ahead, and he won't move up. Move up. Pay attention, people. Move up. Gee willikers. If you have anything you'd like to complain about that you're powerless over, we would love to hear from you. Our email is take12radio@comcast.net. There you go. What do you think, Raj?
I feel better now, Monty.
Don't you?
Actually, the not moving up in line is very irritating to me as well.
It is.
It's just, why are you not moving up in line?
Yeah. You know,
it's almost to the point where it wants to trigger a horn honk, but I cannot stand people who honk their horns.
I know, and so I didn't either.
Do that. I just sit there and then I ask the Lord to please give me patience, because there must be some good reason why they're not moving up in line.
Move along. Oh my goodness sakes. And you know, I'd give it to the poor guy if he was on his phone, even though that drives me crazy too. But I mean, if he was distracted by something, but he wasn't. He's just like this, looking around. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da. I'm like, oh my gosh. All right, that does it for the weekly wine. And listen to this. We'll come back with the topic. What is service work? What is it anyway? We're going to talk a little bit about what it is and maybe some of the precautions, some of the things that you might want to watch out for that could actually be harmful when it comes to service work. So don't go away. We'll be back right after this. Hey everybody, it's the Monty'man. I am so grateful for our good friend, Dr. Alan Berger, author of 12 Stupid Things That Mess Up Recovery, for really showing me the path to emotional sobriety. You know, the ability to be comfortable in your own skin regardless of other people's behavior or the things that are going on around you. Well, Dr. Berger has a brand new book that really digs even deeper into this topic of emotional sobriety. The book, 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety. Listen, we all need some really powerful tools in our arsenal against getting stuck in our recovery. And this is one you do not want to be without. 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety can be purchased at abphd.com. Also available on Amazon.
This is Tom Williams
and Alicia Martinez, and we'd like to invite you to join us every Tuesday right here at take12radio.com for the Came to Believe Recovery podcast.
Topics will include a deep look into the how and why the 12-step movement was so successful in the past and how it can experience that success again today.
You can catch up on all our episodes at take12radio.com by clicking on the Came to Believe Recovery podcast banner.
I come back stronger. I was broken once, but not any longer.
this is Ricky Bird, and you are listening to Monty'man on Take 12 Recovery Radio.
Thank you, Ricky Bird. You can listen to his interview in our archives at take12radio.com. What is the meaning of service work? Taken from the website hiredpower.com. One of the most famous sayings in 12-step groups worldwide is, you can only keep what you have by giving it away. Well, this saying refers to the idea that service and recovery can help the giver as much as the receiver. Service and recovery refers to work carried out for no financial reward or compensation. This may involve directly helping somebody else or indirectly helping them by providing services. The individual in recovery gets involved in service because they know that it helps them stay sober. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a minute. I liked this definition until the last sentence. Yes and no. Does service work help you stay sober? Yes and no. And I think as we go through this, you'll see why it's a yes and no. Certainly when you are new and you haven't been giving of yourself at all, and you've been living a life of self-centeredness and self-seeking and all of that, it is extremely beneficial to you to learn how to be of service, even if it's just sweeping the floor at the meeting hall, even if it's just pouring coffee. I am of the opinion, however, that when you've been in your respectively 12-step fellowship for, a lengthy time, just pouring coffee, is that really a service work? Yeah, I don't know about that. But early on, I see where it is very beneficial. And we make jokes all the time in the 12-step world, well, when I got here, they made me scrub the toilets, and it really helped me grow up. Yeah, maybe. But I did my share of cleaning the bathrooms in the 12-step rooms. How about you, Roger? Did you do that menial stuff in the beginning?
I did. It was more about following directions and doing something I don't want to do than it was spiritually uplifting. It was just it's the long list of seemingly paradoxes that we enjoy when we get into Alcoholics Anonymous that end up being less than self-centered, if you will. But I don't know that sweeping the floors, cleaning ashtrays, cleaning coffee cups, and cleaning the toilets necessarily is directly beneficial to spiritual growth, but it is 100% beneficial to taking direction.
Ooh, good point. Yeah, good point. The statement, the individual in recovery gets involved in service because they know that it helps keep them sober. I think that's true in the beginning, but depending on how you approach service work and how you're involved, it can actually work against you. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Reading on, the importance of service in 12-step groups, specifically the 12-step groups. Groups like Alcoholics Anonymous could not function without the voluntary services provided by members. All these meetings around the world are organized and maintained by volunteers. There is usually a collection at the end of each meeting, but this money is used to pay for rent, literature, or coffee, not for service. Almost every person at these meetings will provide some type of service, even if it is just sharing a bit of their story or preparing the coffee. Sure. Other opportunities to be of service in meetings include chairing the meeting, serving as treasurer, acting as group service representative or GSR, or helping with things that get the meeting running on time and smoothly. You might even decide to show up early for a meeting and help to prepare the meeting room. All valid statements. I would agree with that. And so I'm going to pause here for a minute, and I want to interject. This may sound like a rabbit trail. It really isn't. But I want to interject something about the 12 traditions really quick here. certainly the formulating of the 12 traditions was not the most popular thing in early AA. In fact, there were some people that wanted to lynch Bill for it. But I am one who see the benefit of traditions and the way they help the person in service when it comes to service work. I have a lot of good friends that are anti-traditions. I am not one of those people. The 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous specifically, I learned how to even apply and implement in my personal life, which was very beneficial, especially when dealing with finances and being self-supporting and that kind of thing. So I want to read a paragraph that Bill Wilson wrote in, let me see, the date of this was 1960, and the title of the article that he wrote for the Grapevine was called "Let's Keep It Simple, But How?" And this is what he says about the traditions. Because he was getting a lot of flack. People says, we just need to keep it simple, Bill, and go back to the kitchen table era where we're just hanging out at the kitchen table and talking with each other, and that's all we need to do. And he says, most certainly, indeed, a return to the kitchen table era would bring no hope for simplicity. It could only mean wholesale irresponsibility, disharmony, and ineffectiveness. Let's picture this. There would be no definite guiding principles, no literature, no meeting halls, no group funds, no planned sponsorship, no stable leadership, no clear relations with hospitals, no sound public relations, no local services, no world services. Returning to that early time brand of simplicity would be as absurd as selling the steering wheel, the gas tank, and the tires off your family car. The car would be simplified, all right. No more gas or repair bills. But our car wouldn't go anywhere. The family life would hardly be simplified. It would instantly become confused and complicated. A formless AA anarchy, animated only by the let's get together spirit, just isn't enough for AA's here and now. What worked fine for 200 members in 1938 won't work at all for the more than 200,000 of them in 1960. So he's talking about the importance of those traditions, and he's right. We wouldn't have that stuff. And I think people that are in service within particularly Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm not speaking for AA. Please, listeners, do not get me wrong. I don't represent AA. I don't even claim membership in AA on this show. But what I am saying is I believe that people that are in service within their 12-step fellowship need to be educated on the 12 traditions so they can be more effective in service work. Roger, your thoughts?
Well, I can't think of any fellowship, organization, sure, anything that you want to speak about that has hundreds of thousands of members that doesn't have structure.
Yeah.
You need structure, you need guidelines, you need traditions to be operating efficiently. You can't just have two people at a table or multiple meetings making up rules with no structure.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any, it doesn't happen anywhere in the world where you have order and design, and you got to have that. I don't even know what the question is. I don't know why someone would question having principles, boundaries, some organization in terms of how do we operate.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the question is. What do you mean keep it simple? The concept of no design is the antithesis of keeping it simple. You'll have complete chaos.
Right.
You'll have complete chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we have laws. Laws are designed to have order. Right? It's not to restrict freedoms.
Right.
It's designed for order.
Yeah.
To eliminate chaos.
Amen.
I don't see a valid argument for not having traditions.
So moving on to this whole idea of service work, we talked a little bit about service work within the 12-step groups. But there are people that participate in service work that are healthy, loyal 12-step group members that don't participate in service work within that fellowship, but they do participate in service work in the community. Is it okay to abandon your service work in the 12-step rooms as long as you're in some form of service in society? Roger, what do you think?
I would go back. So I think as you started the show, that's a yes and no.
Yeah.
Our priorities is to stay sober, be sober, and help somebody else and be of maximum service to God and others. It doesn't mean maximum service only within the rooms of AA or within the fellowship of AA. It doesn't say that. It says to be of maximum service to God and others. And others could be people outside the fellowship. So I don't know that you separate them. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I think they're mutually inclusive. And I think that one thing people have to guard against is getting back into self-centeredness by having positions within the fellowship, and we call it service. If it becomes a performance-based issue, I think that's a challenge, because that's not what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's somewhat of a question for each individual.
Yeah.
I believe we all have a calling by God. I believe He has certain things He wants us to do. For instance, what you and I are involved with many times with the Salvation Army.
Sure.
It goes hand in hand with Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's not directly in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's synonymous with Alcoholics Anonymous. So I think that was a long-winded answer to
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. So let's bounce back to service work within the fellowship again, just for a second. There's different viewpoints, different meetings, because meetings can be autonomous as long as they are not affecting AA as a whole. And I believe NA has the same concepts there when it comes to that. So different groups may have different guidelines and boundaries when it comes to when a person is actually able to serve in a certain position, right? Some groups say you have to have a year of sobriety. Some say, some people say you got to have at least 6 months of sobriety before you can even chair a meeting. There's a lot of opinions about it. I don't want to get into opinions about that so much as I do want to just encourage people, no matter where you are in your length of time of abstinence, there is a service position for you. Even if it's just opening the door and shaking hands as people come in. There is always a place for you, or there should be anyway, always a place for you to have an opportunity to get out of yourself and do something for somebody else within the fellowship. It may not be a GSR. It may not be a delegate. It may not be a treasurer, or even somebody sharing a meeting right now, but there's something. All you have to do is, when you go to your meeting, ask whoever's chairing the meeting, what can I do to help? There you go. Right. That's all you got to do. What can I do to help? And, if they say, well, everything's done today, but hey, can you come tomorrow like 10 minutes beforehand and help me set up the chairs? Whatever, it's good stuff. Okay, so back to other types of service. Reading on from higherpower.com, there is no need for an individual to be a member of a 12-step group for them to become involved in service. There are plenty of official and unofficial ways that those in recovery can help others. Such work is highly rewarding, and it can strengthen the commitment of the individual to their own recovery. Anything that directly or indirectly helps others in recovery could be considered a service. Here are some examples. Sponsorship, that's taking somebody through the 12 steps of your fellowship and helping them apply and implement those steps. Volunteering to work with homeless people struggling with drugs or alcohol. One of my sponsees, he volunteers at the soup kitchen in his town. He's been doing it for a very long time. That soup kitchen has no affiliation with the 12-step fellowship he's a member of. And he does that. He's also He's the house manager for a clean and sober men's discipleship house. He does that as well. Taking calls from people seeking help for addiction. There's hotlines that you can volunteer for. And they're in several 12-step fellowships. Creating a nonprofit recovery blog or website. That's kind of Take 12 radio stuff, right, Roger? We've created, we're not a nonprofit organization, but we are a not-for-profit. We're not, nobody's getting paid a salary here. It's all volunteer. Any money that's donated goes directly back into keeping us broadcasting and doesn't go in anybody's pocket. There are thousands of blogs and recovery websites out there, and there's never enough of them. So do that, and it's very inexpensive to start a blog. Most time you can do it for free on like WordPress or something like that. Visiting schools to warn against the dangers of addiction. You can go down to your local police station and you can sign up for drug and alcohol awareness volunteer, at least in our area you can, and they'll come and pick you up and take you to the junior high school, and you can be part of that. Making time to speak with people who are struggling with addiction. We have a warming center that is 2 blocks away from our home. We have a homeless facility that is rather large. That's about 3 blocks away from our home. And at any given time, you will see people within the 12-step fellowships and others standing on the street corners talking with these folks. Big book in hand, Bible in hand, literature for recovery in hand. You can be part of that. You can do that. And that's not necessarily within the 12-step fellowship. It's being of service out on the street. So I want to say this a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's really true. Helping old ladies go across the street. Yeah. Have you seen people trying to get across the street, elderly people today, and with the traffic lights changing too quickly? I have. And I've actually seen people get out of their car and helping them get across. Believe it or not, that's a form of service to humanity, man. There's a lot of things that we can do. Here's something. Mow your neighbor's lawn. If you're fed up with the unmowed lawn next door, go mow it. You know what I mean? We won't put it on the weekly wine either. Just go mow it. Benefits of service. So service and recovery benefits both the giver and the receiver. Benefits of being a service include people who devote time to service may be less likely to suffer from depression. Absolutely true. That goes, if you can talk to people in the mental health field, that goes for people that are actually have been diagnosed with clinical depression. One of the biggest things that therapists will suggest is what are you doing for somebody else? If you're dealing with clinical depression, are you plugging in somewhere where you can help someone else? People that have clinical depression and you would never know it, I'll bet you they're plugged into their community some way, somehow. They're helping somebody. Certainly, that has helped me. And I haven't dealt with depression in years. But I'll tell you, my involvement within the recovery community certainly helped early on. Those in recovery may have a better understanding of the needs of someone new in the process. Often this means the help they have to offer may be more appropriate than help from others. Helping others struggling with addiction reminds the individual of where they came from, which can help keep the pain of addiction fresh in their minds. Some people would say that's called keeping it green. This reminder can help them motivated to stay on the path to recovery. Okay, maybe. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Those being of service are likely to experience a boost in their self-confidence and self-esteem. Certainly. I don't know, Roger, you've probably heard a million times where people say, man, I was just down in the dumps and didn't feel like I was worth much, and I got off my blessed assurance and helped somebody else, and that thought process was gone, right?
Absolutely.
Have you ever experienced that when you're helping somebody and it's just all of a sudden you're your stuff just doesn't amount to much?
It always happens that way.
Yeah.
Whenever I step out of whatever prison I've created for myself in my mind, and I get out and do something for somebody else, it eliminates the issue. It 100% does. And then you can try going back and hanging out with yourself again in that neighborhood every time you go there you get mugged. It's just, if you go and help somebody else with no expectation in something in physical return,
yeah,
you get blessed. You just 100% do. We're created that way.
Yeah,
we're just created that way.
Yeah, certainly. Providing service in the fellowship, such as AA, ensures the program continues to run. If nobody volunteered their time, these groups would disappear. That is for sure. When COVID hit, we saw an increase of people stepping back. One of the reasons was a lot of the meetings closed. Here in the Willamette Valley, they all closed, with the exception of one. And the way that worked was like this. It's an amazing story, and kudos to Danny and Darlene of Lebanon, Oregon. So all the meetings were closed down. Zoom meetings weren't really up and running much yet. And somebody called, one of the sponsees, I think, of Darlene, called her and said, and they were in that mode, they were in early recovery where they had become meeting dependent. Okay, well, we can say what we want about meeting dependency and how that's unhealthy, but it's understandable early on, and it was for this gal. It was understandable. She needed to be around some safe people or she was going to drink. And so Darlene, she said, what do I do? And Darlene said, let me call you back. And she talked to Danny, your husband, and he said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have the meeting in our backyard. And we're going to do it now. And so they got on the phone, they called this gal and some other people and said, we're going to have a meeting. If you want to wear a mask, you can wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, you don't have to wear a mask. It will be a non-issue once you walk through that backyard gate. We don't want to hear about it, but we're just going to have a meeting. And they did. And that meeting became my new home group several years ago. So that meeting continues today. And in the summertime, it's a backyard meeting. And in the wintertime, it meets at the River Center in Lebanon, Oregon. And that meeting is healthy. It is Christ-centered. It is old school 12-step. It's all about solution. And it was all because a couple of people decided to step up and serve and say, we're going to donate our yard. No one's going to, and they, because the officials, they can't tell us what we can do and can't do on our own property. So if we want a meeting on our property, we can do it. And they did it. I love that. I love that stuff.
I love that too.
Okay. So let's move into the area of what to be careful of when being of service. Helping others is always a good thing, but there can be dangers involved. Really? Yeah. This is particularly likely to happen when the individual is doing it for the wrong reasons. Some individuals become so obsessed with focusing on the needs of others that they neglect their own. This is dangerous because it may mean that they are stuck in recovery and their giving is part of the relapse process. Interesting statement, right?
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
You can't give away something you don't have.
Right. And if you're exhausted, if you're spent, if you're neglecting your own health, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, but you're continuing in the service of others, you may be setting yourself up for a big crash and burn. I have a really, really, really good buddy of mine who has so many irons in the fire. I mean, he's hyperactive anyway, but he's doing so much of God's work, right, that I fear at some point something's going to break. And no matter what I say to him, he said, yeah, but I God asked me to do something. I can't say no to him. I said, maybe it's not God asking you to do it. Maybe it's your own ego. Maybe it's the enemy of your soul. Because he does disguise himself as an angel of light, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it is likely to come when they realize that fixing everyone else is not making their lives better. The relapse is. They can start to feel bitter, which may lead to thoughts of returning to drink or drugs. Others may find it hard to say no and end up taking on too much. When this happens, it can further play into neglecting the individual's own needs for the needs of others. Taking on too much can also lead to an increase in stress levels, potentially leading to relapse if not dealt with. And by the way, there are worse things in relapse. People have strokes and heart attacks and go into deep, deep fits of depression. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff out there that if you're neglecting your own, health, it can cause problems. So this comes to a what can be kind of controversial within the rooms of the 12-steppers. And this is that mentality that says you should never say no if asked to do something that's reasonable. I disagree with that.
Well, the never part is the part that
That's
I
the
disagree
part.
with. Yeah. So you cannot neglect your personal recovery, your personal spiritual growth, your personal health in lieu of helping somebody else. You're not, ultimately, if you're not helping yourself in your relationship with God, you're not being of service. You're being distracted from the heart and essence of service.
Yeah. It is it is not unusual to hear service work being offered almost as the end-all be-all solution to alcoholism or drug addiction. Service work. As long as you're doing service work, you'll stay sober. Well, if all I'm trying to do is stay sober, I'm already in trouble.
100%. That's not what the program says. Not what the book says.
Right.
Right. Our daily we have a daily reprieve based on our spiritual condition. It doesn't say we have a daily reprieve based on our on our service work.
Right. Or on our abstinence.
It doesn't say that.
Yeah.
So I've been in sales for 50 years. I'll tell you a common misunderstanding with new egomaniac-driven salespeople. They believe that activity will lead to productivity, and it does not necessarily follow. You can be so doggone busy that you're not productive at all.
Yeah.
But you're busy. You're going 900 miles an hour with your hair on fire down the street or whatever, and you feel like you're being productive. You are not being productive. You're being active, but you're not being productive. And the same goes for service work. You can't make you make 100 commitments that you can't really do well in any of them.
Yep.
But you can say, well, I'm a being of maximum service. Not so much.
Right.
Whatever you take on, you want to be equipped and you want to do it well. You don't want to have multiple tasks involved where you can do none of them well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to be that guy.
Yeah.
I had a very, 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 very hard time saying no. And that was not good.
You froze up there.
I didn't have boundaries and balance.
Yeah.
Boundaries and balance were not part of my personality. The Bible says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And somebody said that to me and I went, what? I understand it now. When you can't do something for the right reasons, the answer is no. And that doesn't mean you're not being of service.
Sometimes you are being more of service and effectiveness by saying no.
100%.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Sometimes people aren't ready to take on significant service opportunities, and that's okay. Some types of service require a lot of trust. And if this trust is broken, it can cause problems. For example, there have been cases where treasurers of AA meetings steal money from the group's funds. Behavior changes don't happen overnight in recovery. And if someone feels they aren't ready to take on a significant amount of responsibility, there are other types of service available. People shouldn't be afraid to start small, just setting up chairs for a meeting, etc., that kind of thing. I can't tell you how many times I have watched the treasurer walk away with the bag.
That happens routinely. That's almost a rite of passage in alcohol.
I know, right? Right? Oh, my goodness sakes. Here are 8 signs you're addicted to helping others. This comes from a consciousrethink.com. I love that URL. Number 1 sign that you're addicted to helping others: you feel guilty or anxious when you can't help someone. I just don't know what to do. I just can't help the person. I've tried and tried and tried, and they just keep doing the same thing, and I'm not being effective.
I used to be that guy.
Did you?
As if I had the power to fix somebody.
Right.
Right? I'm there to be of service and report my experience, strength, and hope. I am not there to fix them.
Yeah.
And I'm also not there to be their banker or whatever. It took me a long time to learn all that. It really did.
If your sponsee relapses, and I'm talking to people that are new to sponsorship, primarily, it is not on you.
100%.
I don't even care. You may have contributed in some way to maybe some improper thinking on their part because you may be teaching something improperly, but their decision is still their decision, not yours.
100%.
And this is why it is so vitally, this is why I love the Came to Believe Recovery, I call it ministry, but it really is an Alcoholics Anonymous thing. It is focused on helping people teach and help other people implement the 12-step process the way it was lined out and meant to be taught, not the way it is taught in many circles today.
Yes.
Back when it was most effective. And if you're, listen, the sole purpose, listeners, now I'm talking about AA now, as far as AA's literature is concerned. I'm not talking about NA or CR or any of those. I don't know about that, but I'll tell you, the AA literature will teach us that the sole purpose of an AA group is to teach the 12 steps in order to help you with your drinking problem. If that group is not doing that, you're in a bad group. If you're not doing that, the sole purpose of a sponsor is help the sponsee maneuver the 12 steps of recovery and bring them to a place of a spiritual awakening as a result of those steps so they can live in a relationship with a power greater than themselves. If you're not doing that, you are not truly sponsoring. You may be enabling. However, having said that, if that's you and your sponsee relapses, it's still not your fault.
100%.
You could go back and reevaluate the way you've been guiding and directing, and that's healthy, right? To kind of sit back and say, okay, maybe I could do better, but it's still their decision or their act of powerlessness or whatever. It is not on you. And the first time one of my sponsees did that, relapse, dude, I thought it was the end of the world. I thought I almost killed the guy. It wasn't me. Number 2 of signs you're addicted to helping others. You feel like you can't say no even when you're overwhelmed. And we've been talking about that. Yeah, I just can't say no. Number 3, you feel like you're responsible for other people's happiness. No, you are not. If you think you are, we need to talk.
Yeah.
We need to talk. Number 4, you feel like you're the only one who can help that person.
Get that out quick.
And I've heard people say, yeah, but they don't understand. I get it. No, nobody in their family and nobody in their circle of friends understands like I understand, because, I'm an addict too, or I'm an alcoholic too, and none of those people are. So I'm the only one that really can communicate any help to them. Now, you're probably one of those power drivers, and you probably got some narcissistic tendencies going on, if that's the case. Number 5, you feel like you're a bad person and not valuable if you're not helping someone. Oh my gosh. So I worked for an organization a few years back for many years, and the director's wife made this statement, and this was a faith-based organization, recovery group. When we were sitting around figuring out the calendar for the year and who was going to take vacation when, staff members. And her statement was, the devil doesn't take vacation, we don't either. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? But you know who did? Jesus.
Every day he went away and
took
time out alone to pray.
Yeah. So if you think you're not valuable unless you're always on, that's not healthy at all. That's somebody who can't set proper boundaries. And you're in trouble. You're in more trouble than the person you're trying to help, let me tell you. Number 6, you have difficulty setting boundaries with people who need your help. The can't say no syndrome. Number 7, you have a hard time accepting help from others because you're used to being the helper. That could be a sign that you are dependent on helping others to be okay with you. Having a hard time accepting help. Not only accepting it, but even speaking up that you need it. Guys are really bad at this because we're supposed to have it all together, right?
Right.
And heaven help us, if I've been sober for 27 years or whatever, and I feel like I'm getting into some hot water in an area, I should know better. So it's just me and God, man. Just me and Jesus. Yeah, you might want to talk to Jesus about that. And number 8, you prioritize helping others over your own needs and wants. So I was going to cross out and wants, but I decided to keep that in there because I think God gives us a desire. I mean, God wants to give us the desire of our hearts, and the desires of our hearts change when we align ourselves with Him, right? And so, but the desires of our hearts can be recreational. It can be buying that boat. It could be going on a backpacking trip with your buddies. It can be stuff like it. That's okay. These people that say, you got to live in poverty to really serve God. Nah, I don't buy that. I don't think you should necessarily have 5 Learjets. We won't mention any names, but I think it's okay to have some wants. I think that's all right. Roger, what do you think about that?
No, I totally agree. If you have a good relationship with God, well, 2 things. He promises to always deliver our needs. So we can ask our wants, and the bottom line is, if our wants are not healthy and good for us, God's not going to provide them. And if our priorities become focused on wants and not needs, that's an issue. But if you are talking with God, and you are surrendered to Him, and you're being of service to others, and you're living a life of His will dominating your will, then your wants become something that's not a bad thing, because it lines up with God's will and God's Spirit. He'll deliver if it's appropriate for me, and I'm good with that. I can tell Him what my wants are, and if they don't align with what He knows could happen as a result of providing that want for me, I'm good with that. If He says that's not good for you, Roger, I'm okay with that.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I don't ask, and
Exactly.
I don't seek. Yeah. Ultimately, the decision's in his hands, and I'm good with that. He knows better than I do, so I'm fine with that. I'm good with that.
Yeah, you're good if he says no.
I am good if he says no.
Yeah.
I might argue for a second, but ultimately, I am good with he says no.
And if we're prioritizing helping others over our own needs, particularly our own needs, but even our wants, I mean, I don't think it's healthy. Should I go help this person paint their house? Or if I go do this today, I plan on going golfing today. Am I a bad guy because I said no with the house painting and I went golfing?
So those questions, I think, are always a bit of a dilemma because so you've got a plan with the family, but someone needs your help to paint the house.
Yeah.
My old me would say, I got to go help the guy paint the house.
Right.
I don't think that's right. Faith, God, faith, family come first, and then service comes after that. So I think that's a situational issue, but I'm pretty clear on what I do now. It's like, I'm sorry, but I have plans with my family, which I never used to do.
Yeah.
And that's a priority for me.
Right.
And God expects me to do that.
Now,
so I don't have so much problem with that, but I used to.
Yeah.
I used to.
I think if you make a commitment to something, and let's say help paint the guy's house, you made that commitment months ago, and at the last minute, maybe a week before the scheduled house painting, your buddies say, "Hey, let's go skiing up at the reservoir," and you have to weigh that. That's a problem for me. You made that commitment.
I think that's a different issue. I'm with you.
That's a different issue. You made that commitment.
Skiing with the buddies.
Right. Now, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with calling your buddy that needs a house painted and saying, "Hey, Fred, I'm just curious. I've been given an offer to go do something on the day that I committed to you to paint. Are we still on with the painting? Because I'm going to do that. I just want to make sure we still on with that." And if he says, "Actually, it would work better if we did it the following weekend," now that's cool.
That happens a lot, by the way. When you ask,
yes,
you get the answers that you kind of weren't expecting. You're
yes.
Like, really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's cool when that works out. Yep. There's nothing wrong with asking. As long as you don't try to put the guy, I guess I can't go skiing. All right. What is service work? I hope that helps listeners. If you have any comments or you would like to type in any comments on any of the podcasting platforms that permit you to do so, or on our YouTube channel, we welcome them, positive, negative, in between. Also, our email address is take12radio. That's TAKE, the number 12, radio at Comcast.net. We welcome your emails as well. Roger, closing thoughts before we close out the show with this great song by Richie Supa.
I think the question of service becomes a spiritual condition, and you get overwhelming because you're so grateful, you're so full of joy and hope and peace that you want to pass it along. However that materializes in your life with the opportunities, as long as it's balanced and you're not sacrificing your own health or your family's health, then I think you do it. And I think the payoff is you have no idea how good you feel about doing that with no strings attached and no expectation of, personal return, what have you. That's been my experience, and I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, good word. All right, coming up on tomorrow's show, the Came to Believe Recovery podcast, with Alicia Martinez, and maybe Roger, we'll see if he comes along tomorrow. The topic will be habits, and specifically identifying the bad ones, change your bad attitude before it becomes a bad habit, and step 10 practices. So we're going to talk about habits on the show tomorrow. And then on Fridays, walking through the language of the heart with Chris S. and myself. The topic will be from the Grapevine article in 1960 that Bill Wilson wrote called AA Tomorrow. So you don't want to miss that as well. And then you can tune into all of our shows and archives by visiting our main website at take12radio.com. All right. Our closing song is by Richie Supa and is entitled Last House on the Block.
Well, I picked up some bad habits, and they kept me running hard. I went against my better judgment. I even turned my back on God. On the streets I met my demons, and they dragged me down the drain. With another shot of something, just to get me past the pain. Yeah, the door is always open when the devil needs a fix. So you burn another 50 you ain't got, and you drift into the darkness till your dreams have all been crushed. You're in so deep, there's no way you can stop. Welcome, yeah, welcome to the last house on the block. He put another nail in his coffin in some roach-infested room, where he thought he found the answers with a needle and a spoon. Yeah, the door is always open when the devil needs a fix. So you shove another 50 through the slot, and you drift into the darkness till your dreams have all been crushed. In a junkie's world, that's all you really got. Welcome, yeah, welcome to the last house on the block. And it's hell disguised as heaven, where the angels fear to go. It's a place all too familiar, where I sold out my soul. And that's how I know the door is always open when the devil needs a fix. So you burn another 50 you ain't got, and you drift into the darkness till your dreams have all been crushed. You're in so deep, there's no way you can stop. Welcome, yeah, welcome to the last house on the block.
Mr. Richie Supa with his song, Last House on the Block. I get goosebumps every time I hear that thing. Hey, a very special thank you to my co-host, Roger McDermott from Huntington Beach, California, coming to us from Arizona this week, for helping me with this show on service work. And for all of you who tune in every week, Thank you so much for your prayers and your thoughts while I was sick. I appreciated them very, very much. We are back on track and doing what we do best, and that is bringing you what we believe is the filet mignon of recovery, and that is the solution that is God. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty'man along with the rest of the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty.
This has been a Chicken and a Pig production.